Oh, my human. You've heard this like 1,000 times, maybe? That you need money to make money? Well, what if I told you that this is like only 20% of the story? Like, say, investing just $25 per week. Barely the cost of takeout these days. That could grow into about 75,000 in 20 years, right? But if you gave it another 10 years, you'd be looking at 225, and then 600,000 if you gave it another decade. Guess this couldn't quite fit? Okay, here that should do it. But the point is, it's not just about money making money, it's actually about doubling what you've already doubled, over and over. Another way to think about it is like planting a seed into a tree, and then patiently watching the tree's own seeds plant an entire forest over time. So the real key to adding zeros to your wealth isn't just about collecting dollar signs, it's actually about putting time to work too. I'm Tobi, by the way, created by a team of financial experts to demystify even the thorniest topics of personal finance. In other words, my mic please. I'm actually way smarter than I look, okay? So buckle up, my human, because our journey together will be so epic that it might even change how you think about money. Forever. But first, let's see how you can put time to work, so that one day you won't have to do all the work anymore. It's all thanks to the immense power of a mathematical concept called compounding returns. And yes, it has everything to do with time, yet very few humans actually understand it for some reason, even humans with fancy degrees. So listen closely. I want to tell you a story about my good friend Kroom. He likes to come by on the farm and feed me apple cores every once in a while. Well, there he is, and I know my drawing skills need work, but I think I'll get better. Or so they said. Anyway, he mentioned he had an extra $1,000 laying around that he won't really need anytime soon. So it was just sitting in his checking account. So I invited him to join me under that apple tree, and of course decided to impress him with my knowledge. And I asked him if he knew that the US stock market has returned an average of about 10% per year over the past century. But he didn't really seem particularly impressed. After all, 10% on $1,000 is only $100 per year. He didn't see why that would make a difference. He thought that even if he invested it for 30 years, that would bring him only like another $3,000. Did not seem that much. But I had to correct him. I told him that his $1,000 could actually grow to $17,500 over that time. And that's without making any additional investments at all. How was he off by so much? And how's that even possible? And please ignore that extra hand that's scratching his head in the drawing. Just a glitch in the matrix, okay? It's pretty simple, actually. It's all because a 10% return would bring in $100 after the first year. But then the following year, he would no longer have 1,000, but 1,100, right? And a 10% return on that would be now another 110 instead. You see that? Rinse and repeat. And notice that by year 7, the total is now almost double the 1,000 that he started with. And here comes the first rule that I will teach you. And it's called the Rule of 72. It simply means that at 10% growth, any one-time investment could double every 7.2 years. So basically, in another 7 years or so, it could double again to $4,000, and then again to $8,000 7 years later. And might be easier to see it in a graph. This periodic doubling is why the growth curve you're looking at here is not a straight line, but rather curves up over time. The only straight line is the $1,000 he invested on the bottom. Then the doubling on top is what makes it grow steeper and steeper over time. So at 10% annual growth, that $1,000 will double to $2,000 after 7.2 years, and then will double again to $4,000. If he gave it enough time, the growth would become near vertical as it keeps doubling what was previously already doubled. And you can now do the math in your head even. That total after 30 years can double to 35,000 about 7 years later, right? And just for fun, if left alone, that $1,000 could grow to about $1 million after 72 years. Sorry I had to squish this up in the corner. It's just off the chart, quite literally. So now imagine if every newborn human baby came into this world with $1,000 and was shown what time can do with it when they reach adulthood. Just think about how powerful this is. A single $1,000 investment, assuming 10% long-term average growth over 72 years, could bring in an average of $13,800 per year. But notice that most of the growth actually happens later in the game, and the more you wait, the more powerful it gets. This is the power of compounding, and this is the answer to your million-dollar question. Now imagine if you started with more than 1,000, and that, my human, is actually how investing makes the rich get richer. Ready now for the reason why so many humans get this wrong? Well, what nearly all humans miss is that this growth looks kind of unimpressive in the first 5 years, so they don't take it seriously early on and end up literally taking money away from their future. So if you delayed investing by 5 years, you would rob yourself of an astonishing 40% of your wealth way down the line. Time does the heavy lifting. It's like a lever, but you just need to give it something to lift. This is why the earlier you start, the more powerful the lift. Those first 5 years, as unimpressive as they seem, are the catapult that will drive your wealth to the top of the mountain. What Kroom also found so surprising is that the amount of time he feeds his investment was actually way more important than the amount he started with. I mean, look at the $1,000 that he put in, right? That's the area shaded in blue. It looks more and more meaningless over time, no? Another gentler way to put it is this: alpacas need hay to grow big and strong, while your investments need time. But what if you didn't have much money laying around to invest? Well, that's fine too, actually, because this is also where things get even more interesting. I know, hard to imagine that's even possible. Yet here we are, because with investing, slow and steady is actually what wins the race. And if you want to quickly ballpark how much a weekly investment would grow into at a 10% average annual rate over 30 years or so, here's how you can do the math in your head. So check this out. 10% growth can turn $25 per week into about $250,000 in 31 years. And this is the essence of the second rule I'll teach you. I even named it after myself, and it is Tobi's rule of 10,000, which basically means that you take any weekly investment, and if you're getting a 10% long-term average return, you would expect time to grow that weekly investment by about 10,000 times in 31 years. And that's sort of astonishing. Note that the green shaded area is the compounded growth on top of the money you already put in, which is in blue. If you now think about the fact that the average American spends $738 per month on new car payments, which comes out to about $170 per week, the real cost of getting new vehicles is not just the maintenance and new tires and all that, because you can now apply Tobi's rule of 10,000 yourself and do the math in your head. Go ahead, add those 4 zeros. Only one right answer. Yeah. And I can pretty much guarantee you that your car will not be worth $1.7 million, okay? Wouldn't you rather use part of that money to buy a nice house instead? Or maybe 2? What do I know? I am just another, talking alpaca. And so by now, you should already see why your second million will come so much faster than your first, and your third million, even faster, even if your income stays about the same the whole time. Check this out. It could take about 25 years for that $170 weekly investment to grow to $1 million at 10%, which may seem way too far away for some humans. But once you have that first million working for you, it could take only another 7 years for it to grow to 2 million. And once you have 2 million, it could take only 4 more years to get to your third, and just another 3 more years to go from 3 to 4 million. This is how compounding accelerates wealth building. If we were to extend this to the average lifetime of the average adult human, or about 50 years, that weekly $170 investment could grow to a little under 12 million. This stunning acceleration over time works similarly to how gravity accelerates falling objects, but in reverse. And maybe this is why Einstein called compounding the most powerful force in the universe. Let me come back to him in a bit. For now, notice that the blue area that is now even more smushed at the bottom shows the total weekly investments over 50 years. Then the green ramp on top is the free money that time created from the blue money that you invested. The difference between the green and blue area is now even more dramatic because we added an extra 20 years of acceleration. And I hope you'll also remain forever stunned by the fact that $170 per week would build you only $1 million in the first 25 years, while the next 25 years could bring in $11 million. Biology cannot yet turn a turtle into a hare, but somehow math certainly can. I mean, most humans do not double their incomes over and over and over during their lifetime. But if left alone, your investments certainly could keep working for you. So at some point, somewhere along this curve, your investment returns will start to outpace not only your annual spending, but also your income. And just as your transportation costs will keep increasing year after year due to inflation, you should also increase that weekly investment year after year as well. That way, the $12 million could have a better shot at keeping up with inflation as well. So this, my dear human, is how even the average person could not only reach financial freedom, but also have a shot at creating generational wealth. But you would have to make investing in your future a priority. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you trade your car for a 5-year-old donkey, okay? Completely unreliable and temperamental in my experience. And the new generation is a sad copy and paste. Guaranteed to turn heads, though, if that's your thing. And speaking of guarantees, remember that there are none when it comes to investing, okay? Any and all investing in the history of time has always come with a risk of loss. The 10% growth I've been using is just the long-term historic average of the entire US stock market, going back 10, 20, 30, 50, and even 100 years. But in the short term, the market has seen 10% drops about once a year. Bigger drops are also common and have happened every 4 years or so before fully recovering back to the historical average. But nobody can predict when the ups and downs will come or how large they will be. If that gives you pause, it totally should. Just like you should pause to think that neither your income nor your health is guaranteed either, right? In fact, nothing in life is it? And this is why I'll do a separate video explaining investment risk and tips on how to manage it. And I'm leaving the final woe for last, okay? Because depending on when you start investing and the size of your long-term investments, your heirs could very well find themselves on the receiving end of 10 million, or even more. But it will be then on you to have the talk with them, spend it on racing llamas, or continue to invest it and potentially grow it to $1 billion over their own lifetime. So I guess I just answered the $1 billion question you never thought to ask. My apologies for that, and maybe I'll make it up to you somehow. So rumor has it that my good friend Albert Einstein once remarked that compounding is also the 8th wonder of the world. We don't know if he actually said this or not. He couldn't seem to remember when I asked him the other day. And I know he may look slightly more disheveled than me, but he too is smarter than he looks, okay? Another less disheveled scientist with a big mane, Benjamin Franklin, summarized compounded returns more succinctly.
Money makes money. And the money that money makes money.
Rinse and repeat. And that deep voice makes him sound so much more authoritative than anything I've said so far. Kind of sad. But still, some wise words there. And maybe that's why his face is on the $100 bill? Not quite sure. So now you too have discovered the 8th wonder of the world, and you're welcome. So, when should humans start investing? Well, famed investor, and once the world's richest man, Warren Buffett, bought his first stock when he was 11 years old for $38. By the time he turned 91, if that stock grew at 10% per year on average, like the rest of the stock market, that money would have doubled over and over every 7 years or so too. Drumroll, please. 77,800. And I have to admit, that's even wilder than me. Of course, as he got older, he invested more than that $38, which is one of the things that helped him become a billionaire. He just earned the foresight to work with time, not against it, and now you have earned that as well. So would you rather wait a while longer, maybe?